This is Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois. He's on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. He also served in the U.S. Air Force and is currently a major in the Air National Guard. Congressman, you had a rather direct response to the president's tweet asserting that ISIS had been defeated in Syria. You said, quote, "This is simply not true."
It's absolutely not true. I mean, I'm speechless today, Jake. I've tried to process this, what led to this. And in fact, during that intro, I was looking down. I've worn this since March. It's a buddy of mine that was killed in Iraq. Andreas O'Keefe, he was killed this year, fighting ISIS. And to see the president wake up today and say, we've defeated them, when we know that's not true. I mean, nobody would argue that we've defeated them. That's not only going to hamper our current operations, it's going to double or triple the ranks of ISIS, because when we leave, they're going to say, look, we just defeated the United States without many casualties. And look, fighting terrorism is not a choice we have. It's just a question of where. Do we fight them there or do we fight them here? This makes no sense to me. I cannot put anything into words about why this makes any sense. It's emboldening Iran. It's emboldening Bashar al-Assad. But it's definitely emboldening ISIS, our sworn enemy. I don't get it.
Ambassador John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, said just a few weeks ago, I think, that the U.S. was not going to leave until Iran left the region. And is it your understanding that Iran has left Syria?
No, and not just John Bolton. Every national security member of the president's team has said we're not going to leave. We have a base in Al Tanf that straddles a very important supply route where Iran wants to have access to Israel and to Israel's enemies. So this has implications beyond just the fight against ISIS. This has to do with Israel, Jordan, everywhere in between, not to mention all our allies that are involved in this fight that also woke up today and goes, oh, okay, so I guess we have to pull all the troops out too because the United States is. Too bad we never heard that until a tweet was just submitted.
Do you explain how, because there are probably a lot of people out there who don't understand it or don't agree with you, but who don't understand why you're arguing this makes the United States less safe. Why?
So ISIS's goal, and that mindset's goal, is to destroy anybody that doesn't not just believe in Islam, but their version of Islam. And what we see is violence right now against other Muslims. But if they have the ability to train, to gather, and to project power into places like the United States of America or in Europe, they'll do it, and we've seen them do it before. If we take the pressure off of them and we give them the opportunity to have land, to plan and execute again, the fight will be back here in the United States. We don't have a choice whether or not to fight terrorism. This isn't like, yeah, we'll fight them because it's good to fight them, or maybe we won't and just live in peace. They're fighting us. The question is, do we fight them in Syria, or do we fight them here at home? And I fear that that's going to be here at home if the president follows through on this.
A lot of Republicans are outspoken about this today. Lindsey Graham, who's one of the president's closest allies in the Senate, says this is a win not only for ISIS, but for Iran, for Russia, and for Bashar al-Assad. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're cheering right now in Tehran. They're cheering in Moscow. They're cheering in Damascus. They're cheering in the rat's nest of ISIS. Where they're not cheering is in Tel Aviv. And we're confused here in Washington because we don't know what's happening. And we don't know why this decision was made with relatively small military footprint. We had them on their heels. They are not defeated. Now they're going to be emboldened.
One person who is celebrating this decision is Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky.
Of course.
A couple days ago, he shared on Twitter an opinion piece from the National Interest titled, "When Will Trump Bring Home U.S. Forces from Syria?" Which reads in part, President Trump should live up to his promise of America first. At the very least, that should be no more foolish, unnecessary Middle Eastern wars. Pulling out of Syria would be a good start. So there are people who support President Trump who think this is President Trump just putting America first.
Well, Rand Paul's viewpoint's a legitimate viewpoint for a libertarian. He's not a Republican. His foreign policy is not Republican. He's a libertarian masking as a Republican. When he, in fact, got elected, he put out a budget that slashed the U.S. military by something like 25%. That's what he wanted to do. He wants to bring everybody home and live in isolation in the United States. In the 21st century, we can't do that. So I hope that the president wasn't listening to Rand Paul's op-ed versus all of his people around him that know this stuff, because I fear that this is going to be a massive disaster. We're going to have to go back to Syria again anyway when ISIS triples in size if we're not careful.
Do you think this kind of decision is the kind of thing that even Secretary Mattis should resign over? I mean, is it that big a mistake in your view?
Well, look, it's a decision. That's a decision, obviously, for Secretary Mattis. If I was in that position, I would have a hard time moving forward on executing a strategy that I think will put the United States in more danger. We have to keep this war against ISIS on, keep them on their heels. This announcement today, I pray the president reconsiders, and I'll give them great credit for reconsidering. But if this goes through, I mean, it would be tough for anybody in that position that knows this is wrong to continue. But it's the president's right to do it. He's the president.
What do you say to the viewer at home who thinks, I mean, we can't just be abroad fighting these wars for the rest of our lives. We're never going to kill every member of ISIS in Syria. We're never going to kill every member of the Taliban or ISIS or whatever in Afghanistan. What do you say to them?
Yeah, I fully agree. This is a generational fight. I think it's going to last probably the rest of my life. But I think part of the way to win is showing a commitment to the next generation of people in those areas that they too can have hope and freedom. And leaving them to the hands of ISIS is only going to encourage more ISIS members, more desperate regime, more problems, and more attacks in the United States and our allies.
Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thanks so much for your time and for your service as well, sir.